Hello, my name is Caitlin and I have a new video for you today. This video was inspired by my how to choose a power supply video, and somebody in the comments said, can you do this for cases? And I thought, well, I do have a lot of cases, so why not? The only one I'm missing is a full tower case. So I went online and I looked for a beautiful full tower case. And not only did I find a beautiful one, I found a very unique one in that this is an actual inverse case. So everything is upside down and backwards. It's a Corsair Carbide 600C inverse ATX full tower case. Whew. So that'll satisfy the full tower and inverse in case anybody ever wants an inverse case. Then we have the Nano S from Fractal Design, and this is an ITX case. It's not, it's very roomy inside, so it's kind of like working in an ATX case. However, it doesn't require an ITX motherboard, hence it being an ITX case. Then we have the new Focus G, also from Fractal Design. And this is a mid-tower ATX case. So both of these cases will take ATX style motherboards. However, this one is a tad roomier, in case you couldn't tell. So without further ado, here are 10 things to look for when purchasing a computer case for your build. Number 1, size. So as I covered already, you have ITX, mid-tower ATX, full tower ATX. So depending on your space and your desk area, where you're going to put the case, that will determine which size you go for. You always want to look at the actual dimensions. If you are working with a limited space, you can go with ITX. If you are looking, if you want a really small case, however, you need a much smaller case, there are even smaller ITX cases that I don't currently own that are way smaller, and eventually maybe possibly we'll do one in one of those cases. Number 2 thing to look for is going to be a PSU shroud. A PSU shroud is essentially completely subjective in a way. It's not necessary, that's for sure. However, it will add to your build quite a bit because it's going to cover your ugly power supply, and generally power supplies aren't very pretty. And it's going to hide your cables, so it gives you a nice boost in the cable management column. So for example, the Corsair Carbide does have a built-in power supply shroud that will cover the power supply and the cables. The Nano S does not have a power supply shroud, however I made one for this case so that it would cover those things. And the Focus G also does not have one. Most of the time you're not going to see a built-in PSU shroud on a more budget case, so there most likely will be a premium on the price if you are looking at a case with a built-in PSU shroud. One good thing about a shroud though is that not only is it going to hide your cables, but it's also going to dampen the noise if you have any noise from your power supply. Most power supplies these days are pretty quiet, so you don't have to worry about the fan running inside too much, but alas, they do sometimes make noise. Number 3, cable routing and cable management options. So not every case is going to be cable friendly. Some cases you just throw the cables in there and they say good luck. That's not always the best, especially if you want a really clean, tidy build with limited cable exposure. So for example, all of these cases do have holes for cable routing. So the Corsair Carbide does, and it has grommets, rubber grommets for the cables to go through. The same with the Nano S. The Focus G does not have the grommets, but it does have the holes so that you can fit the cables behind the motherboard. Some cases will also have built-in Velcro ties so that you're not zip tying everything. Zip ties can get very annoying, especially if you trade out your components or if you ever have to do any maintenance. Cable ties can be very annoying. So the Velcro straps that are not permanent, of course you can just unstrap them anytime you need to, are very helpful. Fractal Design is known for using wonderful Velcro straps that are just really high quality. The Nano S has them, the Focus G does not because it's more of a budget case, and the Corsair case also does not. However, they do give you cable ties if you want to use them. It's always nice to look on a case too at the back panel to make sure that you can fit the cables behind the motherboard plate, so that it's also going to hide those cables and give you a nice cable management boost. Number 4 is fan placement. So depending on how cool you want your build and or what type of cooling you're going to use will determine what case you want to use. So in fact, all of these cases here can fit at least a 240mm radiator. The Nano S actually has the Captain 240EX from Deepcool, so it definitely fits in there. Will obviously fit in the others as well. And it really depends on how you want to place them, so different options. Of course, with the inverse case, you're going to have a radiator along the bottom instead of along the top like we see, or sometimes like you see in mine, along the front. It just depends on how you want to configure your airflow. The larger the case, the more options you have for fan placement as well. So you can see 3 are built into the case already with provided fans, but then you have some more options along the bottom and then on the other cases as well. If you are going an air-cooled route, then you definitely want to make sure that your case is wide enough to fit the height of the air cooler plus the motherboard. So that's always something to keep in mind. Some air coolers are very tall, so you always have to add that to the height of the motherboard to make sure that all of it will fit and that the panel will close. Number 5, filters. So not every case is going to have built-in filters, however it's pretty common these days, and if you're like me and you have pets, you're probably going to want a filter because otherwise your components are going to get all the pet hair and we don't want that. So it's really nice to have a built-in filter that you can just clean out. The Nano S has a slide out filter from the bottom that's really high quality and really nice. It just slides in and out and you can clean this with like a vacuum, so that's really simple. The Corsair and the Focus G have similar things where they're filters, but they don't slide out as nice. You just kind of have to pull them out and then you can clean those. Some of them do have filters on the top as well. You can see both of these cases don't have top ventilation. However, you can take the panel out if you want more ventilation up top on the Nano S, and the Focus G has it built in. Number 6. Whether or not you want a window. So if you have no desire to display anything inside your case, then no reason to get a window. And if you're not getting a window, then you might as well get a case with sound dampening material built into both of the side panels. It will help with the noise coming from the inside of your case quite greatly. So I highly recommend that if you don't like windows. However, if you do like a window, then you do have the option for like a full window like this, or actually these are all full windows. Some windows on cases you'll see like split down the middle, and that's so that it'll hide the non-nice parts of your case, I suppose. The cables, the power supply, things like that. It'll show off your motherboard and your graphics card, which are 2 of the fancier items in your case. Most of these cases, in fact all 3 of these cases, the windows are acrylic, so they're really light and easy to take off. You don't have to worry about them shattering. However, I do have an S340 Elite that has a full window tempered glass panel, and that is not only very heavy, it also always has the potential of shattering. You don't want to hit your elbow on it or anything to it. I've seen videos and pictures of other people with similar cases that have tempered glass and then they have shattered. So if you are going the tempered glass route, then definitely keep that in mind. Also, it's going to add quite a bit to the weight of the case. So if you're looking for a light case, then stay away from tempered glass. Number 7. Really bad with the fingers and the numbers. So number 7 is sound dampening. So this comes back to the window and whether or not you are trying to keep the sound inside the case. So Fractal Design is great at making really quiet cases, and I know there are other case manufacturers, Be Quiet being one of them, that make cases specifically designed for keeping the sound inside of the case and not escaping into your room. So one of the ways they do that is by creating this material on the actual case panels that will dampen the sound. It's kind of like a really soft meshy pad, and so that definitely does help. If that is important to you, then I highly recommend you looking at those cases that specifically dampen the sound, and probably stay away from a windowed panel as well. So difficult. Number 8. The weight of the case. If you have your case or want your case on top of your desk and you don't have a very sturdy desk, then you definitely want to keep in mind the weight of the computer, because not only is it going to be the actual case itself, but it's going to be everything inside of the case. So the case might be 20-30 pounds, but by the end of it you're looking at a 50 or 60 pound computer because of the power supply, the motherboard, the graphics card, hard drives, depending on how many hard drives you have. That all adds up to a very heavy computer, so definitely something to keep in mind. I've seen tables crumble under the heavy load of a really big computer build, specifically like folding tables, so definitely keep that in mind. Base it on what you have and what you have to work with. Number 9, drive bays. If you don't have any plan of using a drive bay at all, like a CD-ROM drive, then there's probably no need to get a case with a CD drive. The Focus G and the Corsair Carbide 600C both have bays for CD drives. I'm not going to use them, but they are there if you want. The Nano S does not. The good thing about not having a drive bay is that it gives you a lot more room that's not wasted. With a drive bay, it takes up a little bit of space even if you are not using it. It just remains there empty and it doesn't always look good. Some of them can be removed or some of them can be forcefully removed, but that's entirely up to you. So definitely keep that in mind when buying a case. If you do plan on using a CD drive, then get a case with a drive bay. If you do not plan on using a CD drive, then you probably want to stay away from it. And number 10, the front I/O. The front I/O will really depend on what you want to plug into the front of the case and not have to reach around to the back every time. So your headphones, a microphone, a flash drive to the USB, anything like that, you'll obviously want on your front I/O. Most cases these days are going to have those options. Some cases will have more options than others. These all have headphone and microphone jacks. They also all have at least one 3.0 USB port and then some USB 2.0. The Nano S only has two 3.0, but the others do have a good mixture. Another thing on the front I/O is that some people like to have that hard drive indicator, just indicating that there's activity going on the hard drive. So if you like that, then not every computer case is going to have that these days. For example, the Nano S does not have that. These two do though. So it really just kind of depends. If that's really important to you though, it's something to keep in mind. I hope you guys enjoyed this quick video on what to look for when purchasing a computer case for your PC build. If you have any questions, do leave them in the comments below. Otherwise, I hope this helped you. Thanks so much for watching.